Okay, now folks, this is Chak Muda. Chak Muda, where Amrapali accosted the Lichavies. Folks, this is Chak Muda. You see this boy smiling? This is the place where Amrapali spun her chariot around. This is the place, this stupa tells the character of Amrapali, how bold she was. She's on this spot, she spins her chariot around, throwing the Lichavies off the road. And she clicks her finger and says that the Buddha has accepted her meal and he was going to have his meal in her place and not anyone else's. Folks, how I got to this conclusion that Chak Muda is the place where Amrapali spun her chariot around, throwing the Lichavies off the road. To understand this, you will have to see the video till the end.
Now we all know the story of Amrapali. She hears that the Buddha is staying in her grove. So she goes, gets on her chariot, and she goes and reaches Chak Amra. Chak Amra is the grove she had given to the Buddha. So she, goes and she prostrates herself before the Buddha. And there is all the Buddhist texts say that whoever went to pay reverence to the Buddha, he would stand in such a manner that the right shoulder was towards the Buddha. Anyway, she did that, and she invited him to have food in her place. This is in the Buddha's Mahaparinirvana story. She invited him to have food in her place, and the Buddha accepts it by staying quiet, silent. See, that was a sign of acceptance. So she bows down to him, and then she gets on her chariot and she rides off. Now look, the Buddhist texts don't mention this, but the ground reality shows it. She rides off, and then she meets the Lichavies coming towards the Buddha to invite him for food. And what she does is, she spins her chariot around so that her chariot is finally yoke to yoke, harness to harness, parallel to the Lichavies' chariots. Folks, she throws them off the road. And then, she snaps her finger, clicks her finger, and tells them that the Buddha was going to have food in her place. He had accepted her invitation, and he would go to no one else's place that day. The Lichavies get angry. They called her Gunika. Now the Buddhists, of course, mispronounced a word of Gaika. Gaika means a singer. So they call her Gaika, and they offer her money, they offer her gold, they offer her land. She tells them that even if you offer me entire Vaishali, I will not accept it. The Buddha is coming to my place for food. So folks, there should be a stupa to this incident, and there is a stupa to this incident. Incident is called Chak Muda. Spelling is Chak Muda, Muda, but it is pronounced Mura. Chak Muda. Mura means she spun her chariot around, folks, and then clicked her finger. Folks, Chak Muda is the place, and it is between Chak Amra, where the Buddha stayed in her mango grove, and Pidhauli, which is Vaishali. It is between. So she did not, after the Buddha accepted her invitation, she gave a cocky one. Instead of going back home, she went towards Vaishali to tell towards Pidhauli to tell the people, the Lichavies, the Digways, that the Buddha was going to have food with her and with no one else. Anyway, but she was lucky, she met the Lichavies on the way. The Digway, now they are Bhumiyar Brahmins, the Digways. So she met the Lichavies on the way, and spun her chariot around, throwing them off the road, and then brought her chariot yoke to yoke, harness to harness, parallel to them, and clicked her finger and sort of challenged them. Folks, she was a queen. Anyway, check out this story and check out the video and pictures of Chak Muda where Amrapali did this. What do you call it? Challenge the Lichavies. This is Amrapali. Now let's see in the Amrapali and the Buddha section. Okay? See. In other accounts, it is stated that the Buddha himself took shelter in her mango grove, that is Chak Amra. Her mango grove is Chak Amra in her name, and was visited by Amrapali, who paid her obeisance to him and then extended the invitation. He consented to her proposal with silence. On her way back, her chariot collided with that of the princely nobles of Vaishali, who were also heading to invite the Buddha to dine with them. They berate her by calling her a mango woman and ask her, a woman of ill repute, to move aside and let her superiors pass. It is then that she announces, look at her boldness. It is then that she announces that the Buddha was coming to her house for a meal. The princes were upset and offered her gold in return of the privilege of hosting the Buddha, but she refuses. Buddha also turns them down, having already committed to Amrapali. See, this is it's written in very simple words. Actually, this is a very cocky story from Amrapali's side. She was very bold. See, the Buddha himself took shelter in her mango groves and was visited by Amrapali, who paid her obeisance to him and then extended the invitation. He consented to her proposal with silence. So Amrapali goes back. On her way back, her chariot collides. Now it is not on her way back. See, her home is southwest of where the Buddha was staying. But she travels northeast towards Pidhauli, that is Vaishali, to challenge to give this information to the Lichavi kings. Her chariot collided with them, with that of the princely nobles of Vaishali, who were also heading to invite the Buddha to dine with them. Her chariot not only collides with them, in other versions of this story, she spins her chariot around, throwing the Lichavies off the road, and she clicks her finger at them and informs them that the Buddha is coming to dinner to her place. Folks, now I will show you that in the satellite picture. See, this is Bajalpura. Bajalpura means music all day and night. That is Amrapali's home. Bajalpura, where her musicians stayed. And Badi Sangat is her personal quarters, where she entertained, her personal bedroom where she entertained the Lichavies. Badi Sangat means, a big meeting. A big meeting. Entering Amrapali's bedroom, you can see the word itself, Badi Sangat. It is a big coalition. That was the name of her bedroom, which Amrapali, a courtesan, warrior and lover. See, this is very important. Amrapali's chamber is called the Swapna Kakshika. Her chamber is called the Swapna. It's not the Swapna Kakshika, folks. Her chamber is called Badi Sangat. Badi Sangat means the big union. The big union. So that is in Bajalpura. Bajalpura means music day in and day out. So that is where her musicians, they adjusted their instruments. So this is where the Buddha would stay. Chak Amla. See,
That is the her, what do you call it, which in Buddhist texts they have mispronounced it as Ambavan or something like that. It is Chak Amla. That is in the name of Amrapali. Now her home is south west from where the Buddha was staying. But she doesn't go southwest. See, here is Pidhauli. That is your your Vaishali mispronounced. The actual name is Pidhauli. So she, after taking her, getting acceptance from the Buddha, instead of going southwest back home, she gives a cocky one by going towards Vaishali or Pidhauli. She go and on the way she meets the Lichavies who are coming to Chak Amla to invite the Buddha for food. And she is already on her way to tell the Lichavies that up here that what do you call it, she has invited the Buddha and the Buddha is going to come to her place and no one else's place. But luckily for her, she meets them on the way. And up here she spins a chariot around. That's what Chak Muda means. Chak, it's spelled Chak Muda, but it is pronounced Chak Muda. Now Chak Muda means to spin around. So this is where she spun her chariot around and threw the Lichavies off the road, folks, at this spot. This is the stupa. And then she clicks her finger and then tells them that what do you call it, the Buddha is going to have food with her and no one else. See, you can see the stupa is here. Okay, the stupa is here. From Chak Amla she goes this way and she spins her chariot around, bringing her chariot yoke to yoke, harness to harness alongside the Lichavies chariots, and she clicks her finger and informs them that the Buddha has accepted her invitation and she will have food in her place and no one else. So folks, check out the pictures of this what do you call it, of Chak Muda.
Okay, now folks, this is Chak Amla. See, the village you see behind you is on the stupa of Chak Amla. This is where the Buddha would stay with his Sangha. See, these people don't know such a terrific story had taken place. This is Chak Amla. This is still in the name of Amrapali. And this is a school over there. And these children, folks, these children are descendants of the Buddhist story. And imagine the Buddha would stay here, and it was from here Amrapali took her leave and went to Chak Muda. This is Chak Muda, a small shop in Chak Muda, and you see the road in between. And on the other side there is another shop. And see, this is what you call it, Chak Muda during the monsoons. Folks, this is the spot where Amrapali spun her chariot around and what do you call it, challenged the Lichavies by clicking her finger at them. This is the spot where she spun her chariot around. See, this is a school now, a modern day school. It's right on the stupa, this school. This is where she spun her chariot around, throwing the Lichavies off the road, and she clicked her finger at them, telling them that the Buddha had accepted her invitation and he was going to go nowhere. And the Lichavies, they call her names, they call her Gaika, dancer, and they offer her money to let go of Buddha's what do you call it, program. But she refuses. He says that even if you give me all the lands of Vaishali, I will not let go of this chance to what do you call it, host Buddha. So folks, this is the spot where it was a very cocky one. So you see, this Chak Muda is right between Pidhauli, which is Vaishali, and Chak Amla, from where she took leave of the Buddha. Her home was west of Chak Amla. That was Bajalpura. So it was southwest. Now instead of going southwest, she goes north
towards Pidhauli, that's Vaishali. She had it in mind that she had to go and tell the Lichavies, the big boys, that she had invited the Buddha and he would go nowhere else. It was by chance that she met them on the road, and this is the spot where she spun her chariot around, throwing them off the road, and they got angry and they called her names, but she clicked her finger and she informed them that the Buddha had accepted her invitation and he wouldn't go anywhere else. So folks, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it, educative. If you did so, please don't forget to follow, like and subscribe to my page Buddha Exhumed, and tell your friends about this video and the other videos which are in my channel or page.